Round 5.
High atop the Kremlin tonight, a Soviet flag at half-staff, a symbol of mourning for Leonid Ilyich Brezhnev, President of the Soviet Union, General Secretary of the Communist Party. For 18 years, the power behind those Kremlin walls. Good evening, this is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. The death in Moscow of Leonid Brezhnev, 39 days before his 76th birthday, came as no real surprise. He had been very ill for several years, reportedly suffering from a stroke, cancer, and heart trouble. But as expected as the death may have been, it nevertheless had a stunning impact around the world. For Leonid Brezhnev was a powerful man, and whoever inherits that mantle of power will influence the events of the world. Our coverage begins with Don McNeil in Moscow.
The announcement of President Brezhnev's death came on Soviet television at 11 o'clock this morning, after many hours of rumor, uncertainty, and suspense.
Leonid Ilyich Brezhnev.
He died yesterday morning at 8:30, and the Soviet news agency TASS says the cause of death was heart failure. On the streets, the news spread slowly. It was the middle of a workday morning, and most people missed the television announcement. Crowds of people were going about their business as usual. Traffic continued to move normally. As the word spread, late edition newspapers sold more quickly. Among the people, there appears to be a sadness, and it's believed Brezhnev will be genuinely mourned. But Soviet sources say there is also some sense of relief, that possibly a new regime will offer a better life in terms of food and consumer goods, that it will at least break the congealed economic stagnation of Brezhnev's last years. There is also concern about who will be in charge in the future, and tonight there were long lineups to buy newspapers and hopefully get some information. Flags throughout the city, including the American Embassy flag, are flying at half-mast, and in Red Square, preparations are already underway for the state funeral. Brezhnev will be buried here on Monday, after 3 days of lying in state at the Hall of Columns, just off the square. A state funeral commission has been named to organize the lying in state and the burial. Tonight it was announced that 68-year-old Yuri Andropov, the former head of the secret police, the KGB, and a full member of the Politburo, will be chairman of that commission. In the past, it's been a good indicator as to who might get the top leadership job, and so it's the first real tip as to who might become Brezhnev's successor. Don McNeil, CBS News, Moscow.
Yuri Andropov is more experienced in foreign affairs and police state tactics than any other candidate to succeed Brezhnev. As ambassador to Budapest in 1956, he oversaw the suppression of the Hungarian Revolution. As head of the KGB for 15 years, he directed the Soviet campaign against the dissident movement.
He has been extremely effective in suppressing the Soviet dissident movement, but in doing so with skill, rather than with heavy-handed brutality.
Andropov has been trying hard to shed his bad cop image. He left the KGB 6 months ago to improve his chances for leadership. His closest rival is probably Konstantin Chernenko, 71, a Brezhnev protege. He's said to have very little experience in industry, agriculture, or foreign affairs. In fact, he's best known as an errand boy for the late Brezhnev. The third leading candidate is 68-year-old Viktor Grishin, whose experience mainly consists in running the Communist Party apparatus in Moscow. Kremlinologists agree that the choice of a successor will not have a radical effect on U.S.-Soviet relations, but the candidates are perceived to have different attitudes. Andropov has cultivated a liberal image in the West. He speaks English and has traveled widely, but his foreign policy views remain something of a mystery. Chernenko is considered by some experts to be the most dovish of the candidates. He went further than Brezhnev in promoting détente and has written that U.S.-Soviet relations can be repaired. Grishin has been an outspoken hardliner on domestic and foreign policy issues. Whichever man is chosen, power is expected to remain within the circle of elderly men who make up today's Politburo. The real transition will come when this generation passes on. Meanwhile, some Kremlinologists believe Soviet uncertainty at home will inspire a reaching out towards the West.
I think there is a much better than even chance that we are at the beginning of a period in which a real negotiation and real compromises are possible.
The Soviet economy is in such bad shape these days that Brezhnev's successor, whoever he turns out to be, is expected to place domestic concerns first. That should make an early confrontation with the West unlikely. Bob Simon, CBS News, New York.
President Reagan was awakened at 3:35 a.m. National Security Advisor William Clark telephoned to report the Brezhnev death. Although Kremlin watchers were warning of a period of uncertainty, the reaction here was calm and low-keyed. At a Veterans Day ceremony, the president read his unemotional letter of condolences to the Soviet Union, reflecting the fact that his relationship with Brezhnev had become tense and strained.
President Brezhnev was one of the world's most important figures for nearly 2 decades. I would also like to convey through you to the Soviet government and people the strong desire of the United States to work toward an improved relationship with the Soviet Union.
The White House put out the word that no U.S. policy changes are anticipated, and the president reiterated his intention to continue building up U.S. defenses. Officials spread the word tonight that the president will not attend the Brezhnev funeral. That decision after an intense internal debate with his foreign policy advisors on one side urging him to go as a way of demonstrating his statesmanship and his sincerity about improving relations. Aides say, however, the president didn't want to go, agreeing with his political advisors, who argued that in making this his first state funeral, Mr. Reagan would appear overly solicitous to the man who suppressed Poland and occupied Afghanistan.
It's expected that Vice President Bush will be diverted from his current trip in Africa to head the U.S. delegation to Moscow. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
Moscow's communist rival China reported Brezhnev's death without comment 18 minutes after the Kremlin announcement. In Warsaw, there was celebration today, not because of Brezhnev's death, but because the military government said Solidarity Union leader Lech Wałęsa will be freed in a few days. The Polish government claimed that Wałęsa, who was detained when martial law was imposed almost a year ago, had offered to come to terms with the military regime.
Hello? Somebody out there? E.T. Video game?
It's coming soon, only from Atari, the video game that lets your family help E.T. get home. But only if there's an Atari video game system at home.
Meet John Hybrid III and his family. Not much personality, but gluttons for punishment. These scientifically advanced lifelike dummies are helping General Motors lead the industry in safety-related research by demonstrating how the human body withstands force.
And you think you've had some tough days.
We're living up to our commitment. Right now, today, we're the best GM ever.
In the 65 years since the Russian Revolution, only 4 men have been the ultimate Kremlin ruler. First there was Lenin, then Stalin, and Khrushchev, and Brezhnev. In the time that Brezhnev ruled, there have been 5 American presidents, and in that time the Soviet Union has made great global strides. Behind the walls of the Kremlin, the Soviet hierarchy mourns the passing of the Brezhnev era just as it struggles to sanctify his Soviet successor. For 18 years, Leonid Brezhnev presided over the world's most powerful communist nation. His mandate, to match the U.S. militarily and to kick the Soviet economy out of the 19th century. He was a communist with a human side, a man who could charm as well as challenge.
He was very warm, very effusive, very emotional, very generous, very physical. He was like Lyndon Johnson. He was a physical man. He always grabbed you by the knee or the arm to make a point.
He had an interesting sense of humor, and he was one who talked very meaningfully about the tremendous losses in World War II, both of his country and of the United States and our allies.
World War II shaped every Russian old enough to remember it. Brezhnev, born in the Ukraine in 1906, was a political officer in that war. Later was adopted by Khrushchev as a trusted aide. He ousted his old mentor in 1964, troubled by Khrushchev's inconsistency. Then he began the largest military buildup in Soviet history. Under Brezhnev, the Soviet Union, for the first time in its history, began to match the military might of its greatest adversaries. His paramount priority was to consolidate Soviet power along the frontiers of the Russian Empire. Czechoslovakia, 1968. Communism's human face battered by the Russian fist. Afghanistan, 1980. 85,000 Russian soldiers occupy a friendly neighbor. Poland, 1981. Solidarity, the Eastern Bloc's first genuine workers' movement, withered by the Soviet glare. Soviet aggression in the end crushed what might have been Brezhnev's lasting legacy, the spirit of détente. He put his signature on 2 strategic arms limitation agreements with the United States. His crowning achievement, probably the 1975 Helsinki Agreement, which ratified Europe's post-war boundaries. At home, Brezhnev's promise has long faded. The workers' paradise is still a mirage.
He made no significant progress in a better life for the Russian people. The Soviet economy is a disaster area. The Russian people suffer not only economic distress, but enormous repression. And it is in that area that he failed.
But as former President Nixon remembered, Brezhnev would allow glimpses of the man behind the dour mask.
Now, Leonid Brezhnev also liked gadgets, to my understanding. Do you recall any anecdote that would drive that home, and what did that tell us about him and the Soviets?
He had a cigarette case where he was supposed to take a cigarette out of there, and then some sort of an alarm would go off. He took out too many. So he carried in his other pocket a package of regular cigarettes, and when the alarm went off on this one, meaning he'd had his quota, he just pulled off the other one and smoked it.
During his 1973 visit to the United States, he took a liking to cowboy star Chuck Connors and impulsively gave the surprised actor a bear hug. Visitors to his Kremlin office found him relaxed and amiable. He enjoyed good food and wine. He was a family man with a wife and 2 children, one a government official, the other a journalist. Towards the end, the once virile Brezhnev needed President Jimmy Carter's hand for support at the 1979 summit. What will happen to the Soviet Union now that Brezhnev is gone? The Soviet Union remains, in Churchill's phrase, a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma.
This is a time of potentially very great danger and potentially great opportunity. And that opportunity, I think, needs to be seized by the West.
What would you consider to be the greatest danger to this country in the wake of his death?
I think the greatest danger that we could avoid is an unwarranted deviation or adventurism or belligerence on our part. The Soviets would react, I think, adversely, and maybe a new and untested leader might do something precipitous.
Brezhnev ruled by Politburo consensus. Now the world waits to see if his successors will imitate him or dare to change.
Hello. I like this Remington microscreen rechargeable shaver so much, I bought the company. It shaves as close as a blade, or I'll give you your money back. The first microscreen is so thin it shaves incredibly close. The second even closer. And Remington's American-made. It costs less. Norelco's imported. It costs much more. The Remington microscreen rechargeable shaver shaves as close as a blade, or your money back. And the Lady Remington, the perfect gift, also with a money-back guarantee.
An impossible dream is about to come true. An airplane called Solar Challenger will fly the English Channel powered by nothing but sunshine. It took vision and hard work and a whole new technology to get it off the ground. It took DuPont Kevlar, Mylar, Delrin, and Nomex. But these ultralight, ultra-strong DuPont materials made more than a dream come true. They're helping to launch America's first fuel-efficient jets. DuPont, makers of better things for better living.
In the Lebanese city of Tyre today, a powerful explosion destroyed the Israeli military headquarters building, killing 15 Arabs and at least 13 Israeli soldiers. Dozens of others were wounded. Cause of the blast has not been determined. Some accounts said a bomb-filled car was driven into the building. Others said stored ammunition accidentally went off. At the White House today, President Reagan announced he is sending Special Envoy Philip Habib back to the Middle East to take charge of overall U.S. policy there. Habib's immediate job, negotiate the withdrawal of all foreign forces from Lebanon. Mission 5 of the Space Shuttle Columbia got off today without a hitch, and as Morton Dean reports, became the first spacecraft to carry a payload that actually pays.
The launch was on time and virtually flawless.
Liftoff of the first operational Space Shuttle mission with 2 satellites on board. And the shuttle
Also on board was the largest crew ever to ride a U.S. spaceship. The crew of 4 said little to mission control as the Columbia rocketed toward an orbit 184 miles above the Earth.
It was a fine ride, I'll tell you.
They did talk about their flight when they received a long-distance call from the White House.
All 4 of us are standing by here, having a good time up here, sir, getting ready for a deployment. Well, now wait till I get my hat and I'll go with you.
The deployment Mission Commander Vance Brand referred to involved the first commercial freight hauled by the shuttle. This afternoon, this spinning satellite was jettisoned from the Columbia's cargo bay on a trip that would take it over 22,000 miles further into space. It was one of 2 communication satellites the shuttle was hired to carry on this flight. The other one will be deployed tomorrow. Morton Dean, CBS News, Kennedy Space Center.
CBS News will provide live coverage of President Reagan's news conference tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. 5 weeks ago, its manufacturers voluntarily withdrew Tylenol capsules from the market after the deaths of 7 people were linked to cyanide-laced capsules of that product. Today, Johnson & Johnson said it will begin returning those capsules to store shelves in so-called triple safety-sealed, tamper-resistant packaging. The Players Union today sent a letter to National Football League owners suggesting new talks aimed at ending the 52-day-old players' strike, but the owners rejected the idea, calling the letter 4 pages of the same old garbage. The union initiative was the first formal proposal aimed at resuming talks since Saturday, when the latest round broke off. In recent days, a minority of NFL teams has held individual meetings and expressed the desire to save the season, even if it means giving up some union demands. There's a proverb which says the longest journey begins with a single step. Well, last Sunday, 60 Minutes reported an experiment aimed at helping paralyzed people walk again with the aid of a computer. Research for that kind of work dates back to the 1960s, but a researcher said today marked the first public demonstration of a computer-assisted walk by a paraplegic, and Meredith Vieira was there.
It's been 4.5 years since the auto accident that crippled Nan Davis. 4.5 years since doctors told her she would never walk again.
There we go, right?
Today she did walk. A computer told her muscles to move, electrical shocks stimulated them, and suddenly Nan Davis could see the world from a position most people take for granted.
It was such a big shock, and when something is such a big shock, you don't really have a reaction until later. You think about what you've just done. And I thought about it, and I thought, gee.
I hope within 5 years she's out walking around campus going to class.
The man behind the computer is Dr. Gerald Petrovsky from Wright State University. His lab is crammed with 13 years' worth of makeshift equipment and a group of people who believe their future lies somewhere beyond a wheelchair. Nan Davis is a success to Dr. Petrovsky and other researchers like him, but there are no false hopes in this laboratory, no cure-alls, just a few simple steps, a beginning. Meredith Vieira, CBS News, Dayton.
When my arthritis kicks up, there's no beating deep heating.
Mentholatum Deep Heating Rub sends fingers of relief to soothe minor arthritis pain for hours.
When my hands are stiff and sore, there's no beating deep heating.
Mentholatum Deep Heating Rub sends fingers of relief to loosen the stiffness of minor arthritis pain for hours. Mentholatum Deep Heating Rub or lotion.
There's no beating deep heating.
In the race to office automation, some will wait for tomorrow. But for those who choose Wang, today, it'll be business in the fast lane. Because Wang has the computer technology and worldwide resources to automate your entire office now. The choice is yours. Ignore the inevitable or race boldly into the future with Wang, the office automation computer company.
The coalition government of Italian Prime Minister Spatolini, the country's 42nd since the war, resigned today, but President Pertini refused to accept the resignation and ordered Spatolini to form a new government. Leonid Brezhnev's death is a poignant reminder of the differences between the world's superpowers and is the subject of Bill Moyer's commentary. Bill?
A friend who travels often to the Soviet Union came back from his last trip with this apocryphal story about Leonid Brezhnev. It seems Brezhnev some years ago wanted to impress his mother with the perquisites of power. But when he showed her his fine Kremlin apartment, she said nothing. When he took her in his big black limousine across town to his penthouse overlooking Moscow, she said nothing. When he called for his helicopter and whisked her to his country retreat, still she said nothing. Mama asked Brezhnev, frustrated, "Aren't you going to say anything about all this?" And she replied, "Well, it is very nice, Leonid, but what are you going to do if the communists get back in power?" This friend says the hardest thing to find in Moscow these days is a genuine Marxist. While Brezhnev was the first among equals, the Kremlin is run by consensus, and the consensus has been that ideology is a good thing until you try to make it work. It's no substitute for the Red Army in keeping power in the Politburo, order in the empire, and the West on guard. But neither armies nor theory bake bread, build factories, or beguile Western bankers. For these, you need agriculture and industry that work. You need trade, technology, and credits. Here, Brezhnev failed. Those pilots in the jets that streak in tribute above his funeral this weekend will have had for breakfast wheat grown in Kansas. And the new Soviet leaders are left to cope with widespread public discontent over shoddy goods and insufficient food. For a while, they will try to project an image of stability and continuity, as befits the conservative coalition in power. About the only thing clear this soon after Brezhnev's death is that the Soviets have choices to make among their military commitments and their problems at home. There's no bargain basement arms race, and not even superpowers can afford all they want. That dilemma we have in common.
Bruce Grandstaff. Yeah. Foreman.
Only from Chevrolet. Only until November 15th on both cars and trucks. Get a round-trip ticket for 2 on Eastern Airlines. Good for a full year. When you buy or order one of these new 1982 or 83 Chevrolets by November 15th. Fly across the country to visit relatives. Or give the round-trip ticket for 2 as a gift. Plus, on new 82 models only, get 10.9% financing that can save you hundreds of dollars in financing costs. It's the best time to shop for a Chevy in the past 10 years.
Renews it.
Renews it. Use it. Open renews it a little or a lot.
It all depends on the odors you've got.
Renews it in the closet, open just a touch.
Renews it in the kitchen, open this much. Renews it in the bathroom, open wide.
Helps keep your house smelling fresh and clean inside.
Renews it.
Renews it. Use it.
And we're priced right.
Who do you count on when you want to be sure? When you really want to take good care of your carpets, rugs, and floors?
Oh, Mom!
Who do you count on? Who's gonna come through?
Who's gonna come
The number one name in floor care. Everyone you know knows who. Hoover. America trusts Hoover in its homes. Hoover. Hoover is a name you've always known.
Yeah.
Everybody who knew the Vietnam War knew its special hallucinatory horrors. Every war has its horrors, including the fear of violent death and the fear that one may die and no one will ever know how it was, how it really was. On this Veterans Day, Bruce Morton tells about 3 of only 8 survivors from a full platoon. 3 survivors who came to Washington to read 22 names and remember and to try to explain how it was, how it really was.
Some of these fellows, they've even forgotten their names.
But Tom Sears never forgot the day. So he took his wife and children to stay with friends and drove to Washington, remembering. Victor Renza left his house in Peekskill, New York, and went to Washington, remembering. Clifford Roundtree flew from Chicago, remembering.
Well, they came in, they shot me in the arm, and I played dead.
What they remembered was a day in May 1967 when North Vietnamese ambushed and overran their platoon. Only 8 Americans survived. They lived by playing dead for 15 hours.
They checked our bodies, took our wallets, our jewelry, our weapons, ammunition, left. We laid there all night and played dead until the next morning about 8:30 when A Company came in and got us.
Tom Sears and Victor Renza have kept in touch. Sears and Clifford Roundtree had not.
I didn't even recognize you.
They had not met nor talked since the medics helicoptered them out, wounded over 15 years ago. Tom Sears and Victor Renza and Clifford Roundtree had come to Washington to remember that unforgotten time when so many of their friends had died and they almost magically had lived.
And the last time I was hit, it came right down, hit me right up here in the back.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Right over by my ear.
Where'd you get hit the first time?
Right in the belt line, right in the pelvis bone.
I couldn't conceive that. I couldn't get that through my head that everybody would be dead.
Remembered rescue.
Remember what it was like laying there head to head, flat down, and hearing A Company coming, reconning by fire, and we didn't know what it was.
And then they went to the wall to remember their dead friends.
Here's Robert
Thank you very much.
They found Robert Sanzone.
There it is. Bruce Grandstaff.
They found Bruce Grandstaff, the platoon sergeant. Richard Nixon gave his widow the Medal of Honor. They stood and looked, mostly in silence, and found the names of all their friends, all their dead friends. They took pictures so they could carry home their dead friends' names.
That's the whole platoon. On one wall.
The names brought memory and emotion flooding back.
I came here for, I don't know, a resolve, and maybe it will. Maybe these guys are home now.
Are you yet?
Not 100%. Not yet.
Tom Sears and Victor Renza and Clifford Roundtree came to this place to remember together what they could never, anyway, forget. This place, this week, is full of memory.
For CBS News, Dan Rather. Good night.
Sue Green is lying.
I can't play another set. My head is aching. I can't tell them I have hemorrhoids.
Honey, try Tronolane. It works better than Preparation H.
Clinical testing proves it. Tronolane does work better. It not only reduces swelling, it relieves pain better, itching better, with a hospital-used medicine Preparation H just doesn't have.
Can we play the next set? My headache is better.
Switch to the better relief of Tronolane in cream or suppositories.
Business. To be in the picture, you gotta be good.
Good and fast, like Canon's NP300F. 30 letter-sized copies a minute.
You gotta give and take.
Canon's 300F gives you reduction and document feeding. Even sorts it all out with optional sorter.
In today's leaner, trimmer business picture,
You need the good stuff.
and nothing but the Canon NP300F. Call toll-free for information or see your authorized Canon dealer.
Introduce a look at the high-tech television of the future, a review of the mini-series, The Blue and the Gray, and the latest on the Space Shuttle, tomorrow on the CBS Morning News.
This is CBS.
Good evening. Eyewitness News has learned about a federal investigation of a public official. We'll have details coming up next on Eyewitness News at 6 o'clock.
Happy New Year!
It's a new 1983